Good morning, gamers. It's currently episode 2 of my largest project ever in Minecraft Hardcore. If you're not up to speed, let me recap. In my last video, I was searching for a witch hut when I found this really cute black cat. I named him Dennis. Immediately, Dennis was my best friend and I vowed to give him a better life. I spent the next 50 hours draining all of the water in the swamp, running machines to blow up the entire area, and even building a witch farm to make his old owners pay for how badly they treated him. Oh, Dennis, where are you at, buddy? I made you this really big hole, dude. You gotta come see it. Dennis? No, oh my god, no, this can't be true, this cannot be true. Who did this? It's been a full week since Dennis was taken from us. Honestly, nothing really has meaning anymore. I can hardly get out of bed, and I'm about to just call it quit. Build 20 farms? Make an entire kingdom? My cat uses Discord? I had to act fast, and oddly enough, I knew right where to start. I began gathering materials around the base area and then made a quick pit stop to steal some bamboo from a nearby jungle. With so many questions still lingering, I set off to an unfamiliar place. A place I hadn't been to in a long time. That's right, you guys, I'm starting things off today with a shulker farm. I figured that this is the most logical place to start because I have not been end raiding in at least 5 months, and I will definitely need a way to store the items that all of these farms produce. The only problem is that most shulker farms require moving at least one of these idiots to the overworld, which is absolutely absurd. I'm not gonna do that, especially because I'm only going to run this thing for like 10 minutes at a time. Luckily for me, I managed to find a much simpler design that I could build right here in the end. And now that the farm is basically built, I just have to get one of these guys up to there, which should be pretty easy, I think. I made this platform with a bunch of rails on it and then put an activator rail at the end. And from there, it was just a matter of capturing one of these guys. Okay, and now once he reaches the end there, he should teleport right into the farm. Okay, that didn't work. All right, take 2, here we go. Come on, buddy, you got this. Yes, let's go, baby, it's in. Just like that, the shulker farm was complete. Now I just had to wait a few minutes for the farm to ramp up, and before long, I would have an unlimited supply of shulker shells. But instead of AFKing like an adult, I figured I would just strike up some conversation with the locals. Hey, man, quick question for you. You know any good, burger joints around here? All right, fine, it's fine. I won't eat, it's fine. I'll be hungry, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Oh my god. What's the deal with that guy? I just wanted a burger, man. I boxed myself in and questioned my life choices for a bit before checking to see that I had accumulated a pretty hefty stack of shulker shells. Ooh, not bad at all for about 10 minutes. I had to be careful. Back there, I was messing around and I let my guard down and almost lost everything as a result of it. But there was still so much to do. On the way back home, I started pondering some important questions. What farms am I actually supposed to build? What does Dennis mean by build a kingdom? What was he trying to tell me before logging off? Am I getting scammed? I needed answers and I needed them fat. Wait, hang on, wait, what? Dennis is playing Cyberpunk 2077? This told me everything. I spent the rest of that night researching what a retro cyberpunk city would look like and determining what blocks I would need to build it. From there, it was just a matter of reverse engineering what farms I would need to make to help me get those blocks, and before I knew it, I had a list. Before I continued building farms, though, I collected a bunch of ice and began outlining the upper and lower perimeter of this hole so I could flood the sides and bottom with water. The grand plan is to turn shaders on for this build, and I want the entire area to reflect off of itself. I think that'll look pretty cool. I couldn't figure out how to flood the bottom though, so yeah, that's gonna be tough. I'm breaking the next 3 farms up into what I call the redstone category, because they will help me get materials to make the redstone components, which I will definitely need to make some of the later, more complex farms. And ironically, the main thing I need isn't even redstone at all. I already have that covered thanks to the witch farm I built in the last episode. So with that said, farms 2 and 3 are a cobblestone and a stone generator. Building a fast cobblestone generator has always been a pretty easy thing to do, but since 1.19 came out, it has actually gotten even easier. You see, normally it requires obsidian to make a blast chamber, but you can actually replace that obsidian now with waterlogged leaves, which work just the same, except they are like way easier to get. In terms of getting lots of regular stone, there really isn't a good way to get it besides mining yourself. So basically all I did was build this machine that pushes you back and forth between two pistons, allowing you to mine it pretty efficiently. In doing my research, I noticed that a lot of the complex farms, which I'm going to build later in this video, need honey blocks. But last time that I checked, to actually build a honey farm, I first needed to find bees, and I don't have any of those, believe it or not. So I set off exploring, and luckily enough, there was a forest pretty close to my big hole, which is good because it's actually one of the only biomes where bee nests spawn to begin with. Yo, pal, how you doing, buddy? Where do you live at? I quickly realized that finding a bee and finding a bee nest are two very different things. Apparently these guys just wander around aimlessly and forget where the heck they live. I spent a while longer searching the forest until eventually I collected a few bee nests with various amounts of bees in them. I only really needed 2 bees for my grand plan to work. I went back home and got to work building up the bee farm. I put shears in a few of the dispensers so I could collect some honeycomb to make more beehives, which I could then use to fill up the rest of the farm. And then I spent some time breeding more bees until all of the hives were full. The rest of that night was spent building up another bee farm module because I realized just having one was a little bit slow. The first 4 farms were done, meaning I had everything to make redstone components for the remaining farms. But something just fell off. I don't know how to describe it other than saying that my world feels really ugly right now. There's a satisfying feeling in Minecraft that comes when you build something you're proud of, something beautiful that makes you feel connected to the world. But right now, having spent the entire last month literally destroying the world and now filling in the remains with ugly farms, I was feeling really bad about the state of this place. You see, for the last month or so, I've spent my time playing Minecraft following a very strict set of rules. Build this machine to blow up this hole. Follow this tutorial to build this farm, and then get this item. I had the same feeling I get when I build like a dresser from IKEA, which let me tell you is not a good one. I just felt like a robot going through the motions. And as a reflection of that, my world felt totally destroyed, completely ugly, and totally non-authentic. So instead of forcing myself to follow these rules, I asked myself, how can I break them? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you what I am calling the secret lair. What is the secret lair, you ask? Allow me to explain. The secret lair is many things. First and foremost, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody. Secondly, it's a super cool hangout spot. This is going to serve as the storage room to organize all of my items while building the farms, and also give me a safe spot to come and craft things. And thirdly, it is not an evil lair. The secret lair promotes an inclusive culture of peace, love, and positivity where all are welcome. And the best part was that I had no plan for what this would look like. I chose this location along the side of the massive hole and then first installed some haste tube beacons, which would make digging a lot faster. And speaking of digging, I spent the next few hours clearing out this massive area. I outlined the entrance in a wooden trim, installed this cool looking arch ceiling, and then started building a massive nether portal here. I wanted this to be the place where I enter the hole. I kept on digging, expanding out the side rooms and installing a bunch of storage chests. It felt good to be back in control. I wanted this place to tell a story, and what better of a way to do that than building a museum exhibit showcasing the redstone machine that helped blow up this massive hole. Finally, I was happy with the interior design, and aside from the fact that I ran out of building blocks, I still felt like this place was missing something. And then it hit me. Wait a minute, what if I connect these farms up to the storage in the secret lair? This was a crazy idea, but I knew I could pull it off. I got to work installing item filters for all of the chests, and from there it was just a matter of digging really long tunnels and connecting up the output of the farms to a series of water streams. These water streams connect directly up to the storage inside of the secret lair. This was a turning point for me. Not only did I just set up a highly efficient storage room that would make building the remaining farms way more enjoyable, but I built this super cool base in the process. I'm splitting the next 4 farms up into the concrete category. To build this retro city, I will need absolute heaps of concrete. Okay then, that seems simple enough. To get concrete, I just need to build a machine that turns concrete powder into actual concrete. To get the concrete powder in the first place, I just need a bunch of gravel and sand. I have no idea how much gravel and sand I would have to collect by hand to have enough, so there's no way I'm going to do that. Luckily, there's a way to get both of these renewably, but the path there is not as straightforward as you might think. In fact, farm number 5 has nothing to do with sand or gravel. It's actually a gold farm. At this point, you're probably wondering how I'm going to turn gold into concrete, or maybe you already have that figured out, in which case, good for you. It'll all make sense in a little bit, but for right now, I spent the next few hours collecting magma blocks. 8 shulker boxes full of it, to be exact. This would be used for the spawn platforms of the gold farm. It's pretty dangerous collecting this stuff since you're usually below lava and also in the nether, but it's pretty easy to find, honestly. After that, I stopped over at the end to take down a small pillar for its obsidian, and then paid a visit to my good buddy Chad to collect some turtle eggs. Hey Chad, how you doing, bud?
It's been 6 months since she left. I no longer know what love is.
Okay, yeah, so apparently Chad's wife left him. Can we get some F's in the chat for my man Chad? That was a dead end, so I went searching further in my world, and before long, I found a bunch more turtles on the shoreline, and they were happily in love. Hey, are you guys like together or? Oh, heck yeah, you guys are. It didn't take long, and I had all of the eggs I needed. When it came time to build the gold farm, I had some choices to make. Do I want a looting-based gold farm or an auto kill one? Do I want it to be an XP farm? And honestly, I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted something that was easy to build and gave me lots of gold. I ended up choosing a design that relies on zombie piglins spawning on a series of magma blocks, pathfinding towards turtle eggs, and then entering a nether portal where they are teleported to the overworld and then killed. And speaking of the overworld, it was now time to make the kill chamber. In the video I saw, they actually built the portal up in the sky and had the piglins fall down to ground level. But I ended up deciding it would be cooler to dig out a big trench for them to fall into and then simply leave the portal right here. After putting in storage, building up a glass wall, and lighting the portal, the gold farm was officially complete. And then that feeling returned. I flew around to just see this portal chilling in the middle of a frozen ocean with a big hole dug below it, and the whole thing just fell out of place. I mean, how could it not? So why not build something here? And what better of a thing to build than an ice tower? I'm pretty sure I literally searched ice tower on Pinterest and I don't remember what came up, but I found this design I really liked, and from there I started outlining the shape of it with dirt just to get an idea of what I was working with. I figured this would be the right move because normally I would design something like this ahead of time in creative mode, so I was a little bit out of my comfort zone right now. Funnily enough though, with a bit of patience and some trial and error, it didn't take long until I had a shape that I could work with. In terms of a block palette, I wanted to keep it fitting to the area around it, so I pretty much stuck with ice variants and snow. I even hollowed out this iceberg to collect packed ice so I wouldn't destroy the natural terrain. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was adding to the world, not removing. It was nice. With the shape already determined, building up the actual tower was really quite easy. I even found a good use for diorite, which is something I never thought I would ever say in my entire life. Before I knew it, the entire tower was complete, and suddenly the gold farm felt like it had a place inside of my world. I was already a full week into this project. At my current pace, it would take an entire month to finish building all 20 farms. And honestly, that didn't even really bother me right now. So if you haven't made the connection yet, farm number 6 is going to be a piglin bartering station. If you give a piglin a piece of gold, they will trade you one of 18 random items, one of which is gravel. So yes, I am quite literally turning gold into gravel. Building up this farm was pretty simple. I mean, I just followed a tutorial. It's not that hard. The hard part, however, was actually getting the piglins loaded into the farm. This farm is set up for 24 piglins, which means it's extremely fast, but also requires you to get 24 piglins. That is not fun. Even though I built the farm on the nether roof, I made sure to put it in a crimson forest biome, which meant that I could build temporary spawn platforms for piglins to spawn on. From there, it was just a matter of name tagging them. John, to be specific. Hey, John, how you doing, buddy? Oh, okay, yep, you're mad. It took me a good couple of hours to get these piglins in place, but boy, was it worth it, as this thing thing generates an absolute ton of items. Okay, so just to recap, I've built a gold farm to get me gravel, and now I just need a way to farm sand and I'll be one step closer to infinite concrete. But farming sand isn't the most straightforward process. It actually involves making a sand duplication machine located at a place none other than an end portal. I chose to build the sand farm at the stronghold located in the middle of the ocean because apparently I like to make my life a living hell. Building the farm was honestly pretty easy. I cleared out some space in the room and then grew in these red mushrooms because apparently they can just eliminate end portal blocks. Yeah, that was pretty weird. The redstone circuits themselves were pretty straightforward as well, and by straightforward I mean yes, I was following a tutorial. And just like that, the farm was essentially complete. But now I had to build a chunk loader, which is basically a fancy way of saying that you have two nether portals sharing items back and forth with dispensers. This allows the sand farm to still run even when I'm AFKing in the end. Speaking of the end, after loading up and turning on the machines, it was time to go there. It was quite weird seeing sand literally appear on the spawn platform and just get yeeted off the edge. All I had to do then was build 4 separate collection mechanisms using buttons to break the sand and hoppers to collect it. There you have it, folks, unlimited sand. Initially, I told myself I wouldn't ever make a sand farm because duplicating building blocks has always felt like cheating. After a lot of thought, I ended up giving in and making one for this project because without it, I would essentially need to destroy an entire desert, and that's not really cool. Despite that, I still felt guilty after making this farm, so I wanted to help connect the farm into the rest of my world in a more natural way. And what better of a way to do that than with my biggest build yet? Considering that this stronghold was in the middle of an ocean, I pretty much had a blank canvas to work with. I ended up deciding that a massive sandcastle on a custom island in the middle of the ocean would look really cool to try and build. So like any build, the first thing I did was use my new favorite method of outlining a shape with dirt. The ice tower I built previously taught me that if the shape was good, the rest of the build would fall into place a lot easier. Overall, the blueprint for this build was very simple. A small tower on the east, a not so small tower on the west, and then a wall connecting the two together. It took a while to get the shape right, but before too long I had something I was pretty happy with. I started with the small tower, building up the main sections with stripped birchwood and transitioning into smooth sandstone to act as a gradient. To add some depth and color contrast, I filled in the middle sections with spruce wood and then installed these window things. Recently I saw some concept art where the tower split off into 4 smaller towers at the top, and I thought, hey, I want to build that. Surprisingly, getting the shape in didn't take too long, but for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what block palette I wanted for the roof section. So I just built 4 different ones and then picked the one that I liked the most. Okay, so we're off to a pretty good start as far as I'm concerned. But this is always the point where my brain tries to play tricks on me. No way this build will look good. It's too tall. Get a real job, loser. Go outside. I guess I was just nervous that the build would end up looking bad and that I would waste a bunch of time, especially because I still had so much work to do with this overall project. But like anything, building is a process, and the only way to build something cool is to trust and follow that process. Next came the castle wall, followed by this upper house section. The whole thing was made out of spruce wood, which looked totally out of place right now, but I was not worried about that at all. The bigger challenge was getting the roof how I wanted it, but ended up creating this nice sloped roof, which looks super cool if you ask me. Oh my god, yes, dude, that looks so good. I'm actually doing it. I feel like I'm having a breakthrough, you guys. By now, I felt like I was doing a lot more block placing and a lot less thinking. The tall tower was under construction, but immediately I realized it would need a fair bit of detailing because of just how large it was. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I can work with this. I remember watching one of my pal Looney's streams while building this part, and one thing he said was to treat building like a series of problems that needs to be solved. And hearing that changed my entire perspective. For the longest time, I had been hesitant to build something out of my comfort zone because I thought it would look bad and that I would let people down. But what I didn't realize was that this was just the first step in the process. A good build is made from making lots of mistakes. And it was these exact mistakes that allowed me to build, by far, my favorite thing in this world. It took me almost a full week of playing on and off to build this castle. It had completely consumed all of my attention within this world. Honestly, I didn't even care though. It just felt good to have made something that I was proud of. I felt absolutely terrible right now. During my little journey to self-discovery or whatever, I had completely lost track of why I was even here in the first place. My best friend Dennis was in danger and I only had 10 days to save him. For farm number 8, I finally installed a use for all of my sand and gravel with this concrete converting machine. Basically, it just turns concrete powder into actual concrete, pushes it along with a series of pistons, and ultimately blows it up with TNT for easy collection. My new fancy building strategy didn't matter right now. I had 12 farms to build and they had to be built as fast as possible. I'm grouping up farms 9 through 12 together because they all work together to help me get end rods. I hardly ever use these things because they are an absolute pain to get, but apparently my cat has standards because they look amazing in modern builds. And if you didn't know, there are other ways to get these things that don't involve stealing them from end cities. But the crafting recipe is a weird one, which is why farm number 9 is a chorus farm. I'm not gonna lie, I did have a feeling I would need to build this farm way back in the Shulker farm section, so I did collect a couple of flowers while I was out in the end. These things are weird. For a chorus plant to grow, you must plant a chorus flower on a piece of endstone. But when harvesting them, the only way to get the flowers back is by breaking them with your hands or shooting them with an arrow. This, paired with the fact that you have to manually replant the flowers, makes a chorus farm basically impossible to be automatic. But after some searching, I found this design, which fills up a series of dispensers with arrows and then rains down absolute hellfire on the chorus plants below. Not only does this look absolutely ridiculous in the best way possible, but it also automatically breaks off the chorus flowers for easy replanting. Unfortunately, chorus fruits aren't enough to get end rods. You actually need popped chorus fruit, which you get from smelting these chorus fruit in a furnace. So for farm number 10, I'm building a super smelter. This thing works by evenly distributing items across a series of furnaces so they can be smelted extremely fast. This is good and all, but for it to work automatically, I need a fuel source. Believe it or not, there are 75 unique items that can fuel a furnace in Minecraft. You're probably familiar with the common ones: coal, lava, blaze rods, beehives. Wait a second, beehives? Daylight detectors? Carpets? Oh, okay, yeah, so it turns out most of these are totally useless. Luckily for me, bamboo is a pretty great source of fuel. It's very easy to farm in mass quantities and can be automatically sent right into the furnaces with a series of water streams. Now, most bamboo farms you see involve building this big cage thing and then swooping through every so often with a flying machine to break the plants. But I like this design because it generates a steady stream of bamboo and is very easily expandable. The only problem was that I didn't really know how many layers I would need to sustainably power these furnaces, so after building up 2 of them, I decided that would be good for right now. Only 1 more farm was needed and I would have access to all of the end rods my little heart desires. Apart from popped chorus fruit, the recipe also requires blaze rods. So yes, for farm number 12 in this journey, we are building a blaze farm. Okay, well, that was a literal nightmare, but there we go, my friends. Blaze Farm is complete. When I got back home, I added 1 more layer to the bamboo farm to ensure I'd have enough fuel and fired up the super smelter. I even used my newfound access to end rods and spent some time detailing this secret layer some more. There was still a ton of work to do, but I was feeling optimistic as day 1 came to a close. I woke up on day 2 absolutely scared shitless that I wouldn't be able to finish this quest in time. But it didn't matter what I thought. 7 more farms plus an entire kingdom to build in the next 9 days. The theme for today's farms all revolve around me being far too lazy to chop trees by hand, which is why farm 13 is another tree farm. This thing is awesome because it provides me with all the warped wood and shroom lights I'll ever need, which is going to be a lot. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that this is the most complicated thing I have ever built in Minecraft. And to this day, I still have no idea how it works. I mean, look at this thing. It looks like an actual computer. Anyways, my stupidity aside, I wasn't out of the woods yet. Get it? Woods? Okay, I'm done. Growing mass amounts of warped wood will require a lot of warped fungus, aka those little blue mushrooms that the hoglins are scared of, which is why farm 14 is exactly that, a fungus farm. This thing produces so many items per hour, but since I only really care about the fungus, I installed filters for them and then simply burned the rest of the stuff to prevent lag. This is shaping up to be quite a lot of work, but the work is not done yet. You see, I still needed thousands of bone meal per hour to actually grow the trees and run the farm sustainably. So technically, I could just convert the bones from my mob farm or wither skeleton farm or my other mob farm into bone meal, but why would I do that when farm number 15 generates the bone meal for me? Essentially, what this is a glorified moss farm, but instead of outputting that moss for my collection, it funnels the moss back through a series of composters, turning it into bone meal. The crazy thing here is that composting moss and its components actually gives you more bone meal than it took to create the moss in the first place. Basically, this thing breaks the second law of thermodynamics. If you know, you know. Anyways, engineering trauma aside, this thing took a while to get going because it had to generate enough bone meal to fill up all the dispensers. But when that was finally done, I had a pretty stable source of bone meal. Alright, the moment we've been waiting for. A fungus farm, a bone meal farm, and this thing, all to get me shroom lights. And the craziest thing is, I had to build these two farms before I could even test this, so I don't even know if this thing works. I'll put it bluntly, the farm did not work. Immediately, I had a pretty concerning explosion, and soon there was lava everywhere, basically rendering the entire contraption useless. Also, let me clarify, I built it wrong. The machine works great, I'm sure. Either way, I can hardly even express to you how not willing I was to fix this. In fact, I decided just to leave it sitting there, a scrap of what it once was to serve as a friendly reminder to myself of my own redstone abilities. I spent the next couple of hours rebuilding a much more simplified version of another tree farm, which actually works despite giving me a lot less shroom lights. Day 2 was coming to an end, but not until I built one more tree farm. This one being for dark oak wood. Honestly, nobody tell Dennis, but this farm is mostly just for me because I really like dark oak wood, but I'm tired of chopping the trees down. I don't think it'll work very well with this cyberpunk futuristic city vibe, but we'll see. So it's currently day 3 of trying to build 20 farms and an entire kingdom so my cat will come back to me. Right now we're getting super close to finishing up the farms. In fact, I only have 4 more left to build, and my goal is to finish them today so I'll have an entire week to work on the kingdom. So yeah, I'm gonna get working on that. Farm 17 is a guardian farm. Personally, I think prismarine works very well with modern builds. Not to mention sea lanterns are still by far my favorite lighting block in the entire game. Normally, I would take the time to do the thing where you drain the water and build a cool base around the monument, but I'm in a severe time crunch, so we will definitely do that later in the world, but not right now. But right now, I had a much simpler design. In fact, this design doesn't require any draining at all. Alright, so the guardian farm is done, and this thing only took a couple of hours to build, which is not bad at all considering the rates of this thing. Despite now having access to sea lanterns, I wanted to build a frog light farm next to get my hands on additional lighting blocks that come in 3 different colors. Here's how it went. To begin this journey, I first needed to find some frogs. Luckily, this shouldn't have been a problem because I'm surrounded by a swamp. Oh, froggies, where are ya? I'm a man looking for some froggy friends. Finding frogs near my base was proving to be quite difficult. I guess the rumors must have spread about the destruction I've caused throughout their homeland. I flew off further afield. Finally, I found some. I bred them and saw they gave me some tadpoles, which I immediately killed. Ooh. Yeah, that was an accident. I was too embarrassed to hang around there any longer, so I kept searching, found more frogs, made more tadpoles, and then collected the tadpoles. I raised these tadpoles in 3 different biomes. Cold, warm, and normal, I guess, until I had a small army of frogs. A small, very well behaved, and very hungry army of frogs. The frog light farm is basically a magma cube farm, but instead of killing the magma cubes yourself, you let the frogs eat them for you. In doing so, they spit out a frog light. These come in 3 different colors and they look absolutely amazing. 18 farms down, 2 more to go. Farm 19 was a flower farm. This would give me access to a couple more dyes that would help with various concrete colors. At this point, the only colors I still need dye for are blue and yellow. So to keep things simple, I found this spot near my base that grows blue and yellow flowers and built the farm there. It's a very simple design, but it works very well. The last farm I'm going to build is a wool farm to help offset all of the concrete I will be using in this build. It was also also a pretty great excuse to put a couple of sheep in a boat with me and absolutely yeet ourselves off into the hole. Oh baby, easy does it. While breeding up the sheep, I started working on the farm, building up 24 modules, which should provide plenty of wool going forward. The idea here is simple. The sheep eat grass because they are hungry. An observer detects that, which powers a dispenser with shears, giving them a haircut and giving me their wool. Building up the farm was the easy part. Getting the sheep in place was an absolute nightmare. Oh my god, what are you doing? You are so dumb. Eventually, I got them all into place. And now that all 20 farms are done and generating me resources, I have exactly 1 week to build up this entire kingdom. I might be screwed.